Rockstar Games is known to have some of the best main characters ever written in video games. Rockstar begins their games with broken main characters, who are lost in the world, dealing with open wounds from the past. CJ is a great example. CJ returns to LS after finding out his mother passed away. After 5 years, he returns to the neighborhood, full of guilt and haunted by the past. His own family believes he abandoned them when the neighborhood needed him the most.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Look who I found hanging around.
Carl, hey, good to see you.
I can't believe she gone, man.
That's another funeral you ran away from, fool. Just like Brian's.
Hey, she was my mama too.
Not for the past 5 years she wasn't, nigga.
CJ feels internally tied to this block, against his own will. No matter what happens in CJ's life, no matter how far he runs away, he will always return to this hood, against his very will. Over the course of the story, CJ helps rebuild his family, but after being betrayed by the ones he was closest to, this time he doesn't run away back to Liberty City. He overcomes it. He becomes more than just a gangbanger from the south side of Los Santos. He adapts, becoming a true leader, pushing the boundaries of what a criminal organization can truly be. By the end of the game, a new CJ returns to Grove Street, not because he's trapped there, but because he chooses to return. Overcoming his brother's death and the guilt that came with it, CJ becomes the leader that his neighborhood needs. And this is just one of many examples of how Rockstar writes powerful main characters. And people believe that since Dan Houser has left the company, that GTA 6 writing is going to be terrible. But the people who say this usually don't know, or just neglect the idea that more than one person works on the Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead games. All the hard work poured in by thousands of devs and writers and everyone, for all their work to be shadowed by one man. I'm not downplaying Dan Houser's work at all. He's done amazing things and will continue to write amazing stories. To publicly destroy Rockstar's entire history because one or two people left is completely stupid. The hatred for Grand Theft Auto 6 to me just feels so performative and forced. But I digress. Jason Duval is our main lead in the upcoming highly anticipated entry in the Grand Theft Auto universe. And Jason to me seems like a very interesting character with many flaws, and what I believe is a very dark past and possibly even a darker future depending on how the story will unfold. Jason is already becoming a fan favorite with the little of what we've seen from him. Jason as a character is super interesting to me. From his time in the army, all the way up to when I believe he actually got kicked out of the army. And then, where we see him in the trailers, a criminal smuggler, who finds the woman who will either be the best thing to ever happen to him, or the worst thing to ever happen to him. Before I begin my deep dive into the interesting character origin of Jason Duval, I ask for one quick favor. If you can scroll down and subscribe to my channel and like the video, it means the world to me. And by doing that, it pushes my videos out to even more people for them to enjoy. My last video absolutely exploded when I talked about the prologue. Thank you for all of your comments, I love reading all of them. It makes me extremely happy that people enjoy my writing and work. And I hope you enjoy this video even more. Please enjoy. So, who is Jason Duval?
I'm here for Lucia Caminos. She's supposed to be getting out.
What's your name?
Jason Duval.
I've seen you here before.
You might have.
Well, we get a very small but vital insight over on Rockstar's website. For those of you who are unaware, after the infamous delay of GTA 6 back in May of 2025, Rockstar a few days later posted Trailer 2. This was most likely due to damage control for delaying the game after having no information for 500 days, but again, I digress. But more importantly than dropping Trailer 2 is that Rockstar actually dropped a website full of hidden lore and 70 screenshots about the world of Leonida. This was the very first time we truly got a deep look at the world and the characters that will be gracing our screens when the game finally launches. For the remaining part of the video, I'll be using my amateur writing skills, while at the same time mixing all the limited but very crucial lore that Rockstar has hinted at to help me come up with a possible origin story for Jason, and to also paint a picture of who exactly Jason Duval truly is, and what his character arc could be. Alright, so no better place to start than his early childhood. So if you head over to the website, we can find these details about Jason's early life. Jason grew up around grifters and crooks. After a stint in the army, trying to shake off his troubled teens, he found himself in the Keys doing what he knows best, working for local drug runners. Okay, so let's break this down. Jason grew up around grifters and crooks. He joined the army to shake off his teens. Jason is good with working with local drug runners. We'll come back to his time in the army later, but let's talk about his teens. For some reason, I have this gut feeling that Jason is an orphan. I don't know why, but to me it just makes sense for his character. Him being around grifters and crooks could be referring to Brian Hedder, a local drug runner from the Leonida Keys. I reckon Jason was most likely hanging around the wrong crowd when he was growing up, but what do you guys call it? Middle school? I think that's what you call it. I'm Australian, we don't have middle school. But I reckon during his middle school years, maybe around 13 to 15, we could find out that he was one of the delinquents just running around causing havoc. And most likely becoming a small town dealer, probably selling the green stuff. I can't say what the green stuff is, or YouTube will send me to YouTube hell, but you know what I'm talking about. And while Jason is doing small time crime, we could see him run into Brian. Maybe he was caught selling stuff at the Rusty Anchor, a bar that Brian loves, and we see later in trailer 2 is where the gang celebrates Lucia's release. And multiple screenshots on the website are surrounding this place called the Rusty Anchor, suggesting to me and the rest of the community that the Rusty Anchor is a very important location to the gang. And having the bar close to Brian's boatyard, as they are both located in the Keys, is a very telling point that this is a meetup spot. So this location could make a lot of sense, and hold a lot of emotions for both Jason and Brian, as this is the first time they ran into each other. I believe their first encounter may not be so nice. As I mentioned, Jason could be there either selling product or just sneaking into a bar, and Brian, being a local legend, is there and kicks them out. This is where I feel Brian would do some tough love to try to convince Jason to go and live a normal life, go to college, that sort of thing. But since Jason is in his troubled teens, he doesn't listen and runs off. But this wouldn't be the last time Brian will see the punk kid. We could see Jason selling again, but in more of the town of the Keys, and Brian spots him at the corner of his eye, the young lad that he has previously seen at the Rusty Anchor. And I think this is a good time to mention another key character, Cal Hampton. Cal is the self-proclaimed best friend of Jason Duval, and because I doubt Cal was in the army with Jason, I reckon they're probably childhood friends, or just another troubled teen that grew up around Jason. Cal seems to be our guy in the chair, the planner, and the one with the brains and high IQ, while Jason is of course the muscle. But coming back to Brian finding Jason for a second time, I reckon Cal could be with Jason this time, and this is where Brian will take the boys under his wing. He could see the potential in Jason and Cal being pretty smart for their age, but again, I feel like Brian could see that if he doesn't step in and guide them to a better way of doing crime, that they could end up getting killed. And maybe Brian has a son that passed away at a young age, and Jason reminds him of him, and not letting what happened to his son happen to Jason. Becoming some messed up Batman and Robin story. Brian becomes a father figure to Jason. And speaking about Batman, I don't know why, but maybe it's just because Jason shares the same name as Jason Todd, one of Batman's Robins. I kind of see a lot of Jason Todd in what I imagine for our Jason's origin story. And you might be thinking, here goes Grid on another tangent, but hear me out. I may be crazy, I probably am, but Jason Todd's origin story kind of fits our Jason's story, and could even give us insight to what we could see. Look guys, Rockstar hasn't given us anything, so I'm doing my best to come up with story beats. So let me quickly recap Jason Todd's origin story. Jason Todd was born in Gotham. His father was sent to prison when Jason was young. When he was released, he never came back to Jason and his mother. Jason's mother was a drug addict. While Jason was growing up, he was surrounded by what you could say are grifters and crooks. He started at a young age stealing parts off cars. In the middle of the night, he would go up to parked cars and steal their tires and what other things he could scavenge from them. He would then sell them to a chop shop to help make money for him and his mum. At the age of 12, his mother ODs, leaving Jason to live on the streets. One night, Jason sees a fancy car and decides to steal parts from. He steals one tire and takes it back to his stash, but on his return to retrieve the rest of the tires, he is jump scared by the Batman. The car he was stealing tires from was in fact the Batmobile. So from there, long story short, he became the second Robin to Batman. And look, do I think that Rockstar Games named Jason Duval after Jason Todd? No, I'm not that schizo yet. But the relationship between Jason Duval and Brian Hedder could line up into some reverse relationship of Jason Todd and Bruce Wayne. Let's just hope our Jason doesn't run into a Joker with a crowbar. Okay, so let's jump ahead a few years, after Brian took in the boys. I should mention that I can definitely see a reality where Cal and Jason meet when Jason leaves the army, making Cal not a childhood friend. I definitely can see both situations. But for Grid's schizo origin story, let's just say he is in fact a childhood friend. So after a few years of smuggling product across the waters of Leonida, being the muscle for crime that Brian needed done, one day, Jason decides that he wants more out of life. He had enough of this rough life so far and wants to turn his combat and strength into something more than just smuggling drugs across the borders. And this is where I reckon he talks to Brian and decides to enlist into the army. And touching on Jason and Brian's relationship just a bit more, I just want to make it clear that I don't think Brian is like a foster dad. He loves and cares for Jason, but will never show it or say it. Brian is a criminal veteran. He has probably smuggled the most product across Leonida than anyone else has in the history of Leonida. And coming over to Rockstar's website, they say this about him. Brian's a classic drug runner from the golden age of smuggling in the Keys, still moving product through his boatyard with his third wife Lori. Brian has been around long enough to let others do his dirty work. Brian's letting Jason live rent-free at one of his properties, so long as he helps with local shakedowns and stops by for Lori's sangria once in a while. And let me quickly build upon their relationship by jumping all the way to present day. In the insight that Rockstar gives us on the website, saying that Jason lives rent-free at his property and wants him to stop by for Lori's sangria. Sangria is a fruity alcoholic punch drink, by the way, if anyone didn't know. Rockstar Games telling us that they want Jason to stop by for a drink once in a while tells me that the relationship is a father and son relationship due to the fact him wanting to see Jason more often. And also coming to the start of trailer 2, a small thing that may not be anything, but when Brian yells at Jason to go do some work, Jason jokingly says under his breath, "Thanks Brian, love you Jason."
What you doing up there?
I'm just fixing some leaks.
Seriously, dude, you got some time on your hands. I got some properties with paying tenants.
Oh, that's why you came by?
Just go get me my checks.
See you, Brian. Love you, Jason.
I see this at a possible long-running plot point that Brian never says "I love you" to Jason until the point where he dies, and says it in the second last chapter of the story when Lucia blows up everything and the couple become the most wanted people in the state. But that's a video for another day. And now, let's begin to talk about Jason's time in the army, which is a massive part of his character. Alright, so the reason why we know Jason was even in the army to begin with is because on the before mentioned Rockstar's website, they tell us pretty straight up, he served a stint in the army to shake off his troubled teens. But more importantly than Rockstar telling us verbatim, we can actually see that Jason has a US Ranger tattoo on his shoulder. And Rockstar shows this off quite a lot in multiple screenshots and in the trailers. The tattoo isn't a one-to-one copy of the real-life equivalent of the Rangers logo, but it's close enough to the GTA equivalent. It should come to no surprise to anyone that Jason having this tattoo alone is a massive sign that he is proud to be a Ranger. And I'm actually from Australia. I don't really know too much about the US Army, even though I'm first generation Australian. My parents are from the States, and my granddad served in the Marines. So you would think that I would have some knowledge about the military, but unfortunately I do not. But I did do my research, and I'm sure someone will comment if I got something wrong, but I tried my best when researching. From what I gathered, the Rangers aren't to be messed with. Their literal tagline is "Rangers get it done." These guys are badass. I mean, honestly, every US branch is pretty badass. And it's believed from overanalyzing Jason's tattoo that he is in fact a part of the 75th Ranger Regiment, as he has a Marauder's parachute skull tattoo, and written on his tattoo we also see the text "BCO", which obviously means that Jason was a part of the Bravo Company. A Rangers company generally consists of around 100 to 150 Rangers, all organized into several platoons, led by accompanying officers and senior NCOs. They're capable of conducting independent raids, air assaults, and other special operations. Okay, so now we know what type of soldier Jason is, but what exactly is the 75th Regiment? And what is the journey to join them? Well, I found the following. I didn't actually write this part, I found a good synopsis online that probably will explain it better than I can. The 75th Ranger Regiment is one of the US Army's Special Operation Forces. It's an elite light infantry unit designed to deploy anywhere in the world on very short notice. The Rangers' primary missions include the following: direct action raids against high value targets, airfield seizures to allow larger forces to land, special reconnaissance and surveillance, hostage rescue and personal recovery, counter-terrorism operations, supporting other special operation forces such as the Green Berets, and other special force operations. Unlike conventional infantry, Rangers specialize in fast, high-risk missions where speed, surprise, and precision are critical. Becoming a Ranger is extremely demanding. The journey to become a Ranger is typically them starting off by enlisting in the US Army, completing basic combat training and advanced individual training. Attend airborne schools to become qualified to use parachutes in the military. They must also complete the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, also known as the RASP, an intensive course that tests physical fitness, mental resilience, marksmanship, navigation, and teamwork. Only those who pass the RASP are assigned to the 75th Ranger Regiment. Many Rangers later attend the United States Army Ranger School, which is a separate leadership course open to soldiers from across the Army. Graduating from Ranger School earns the Ranger tab, but it does not automatically make someone a member of the 75th Ranger Regiment. So yeah, Jason is a Special Forces badass. So coming back to our timeline of GTA 6, it's safe to assume that Jason joins basic training somewhere between 17 and 20. For the sake of convenience, let's say he enlists at the age of 20. But of course the year can vary. So coming up with our timeline, at the age of 20, he enlists into the army. Age 20 to 21, he completes basic training and joins the 75th Ranger Regiment. And then from the age of 21 to maybe around 26 or older, he serves with the Rangers, potentially deploying multiple times. And then at the age of maybe 26 or 27, he leaves the army. During Jason's time in the Ranger Regiment, he was most likely deployed in Afghanistan or Iraq, as these are the only confirmed deployments by the US government. But there is a lot of other countries that are widely believed to be places where the 75th have been deployed, but the US government have never confirmed this, because the 75th are special forces who do secret special forces things. So his time in the army isn't something that people should sneeze at, because it molded Jason from being a street rat into both physically and mentally being the strongest person in any room he enters. And you can tell in trailer 2 and even trailer 1 that Jason is quite cool-headed and calculated, being depicted as a quiet person. And Rockstar also shows off that his combat skill rivals John Wick. When I first started thinking about Jason's time in the army, I thought it would be some badass story where he's kicked out for being a badass who is just so badass that he doesn't take shit from anyone because he's a badass. But the more I think about it and the more I expand upon it, it honestly makes sense to me that he may have just simply left. Obviously it's not going to be some cut and dry story where he just leaves, but I do reckon that in his final deployment, he is in an operation that goes south, and he may be the only sole survivor. The mistake in the operation could be from the higher ups, or could be Jason's fault, or may just be a freak accident, but regardless of whose fault it is, it causes Jason to leave the army. The trauma for being a sole survivor could be a part of his character's journey, but I believe that Jason's internal conflict come from two different places. One being that no matter what Jason does in his life, all roads lead to him being a criminal in Leonida. Just like how CJ feels bound to Grove Street, Jason feels bound to becoming a criminal and he can never change. And his second internal conflict is Lucia. I'm not entirely sure how Jason and Lucia meet, but I do believe it's just after he leaves the army, when he first arrives back in the Keys. And this is when Lucia first arrives from Liberty City. The two will hit it off and begin their Bonnie and Clyde spree of small-time crime, and slowly ramping up to bigger and bigger crime, until it leads to Lucia ending up in prison. I feel like during this era, before Lucia is locked up, Jason and Lucia are just young, dumb, and you could say that they are hot together. Just like the trailer 2 song, man, I'm a genius. Jason most likely struggles to fit back into society and believes him being a criminal is just who he is. He can't change it. But again, over the course of the story, he finally realizes that he can change. So, during this time, Jason and Lucia are having the time of their life, but all great things must come to an end. And that's where, I believe, a few years after they meet, Lucia is out alone one day when she runs into someone from her days in Liberty City. And if you had a chance to watch my prologue video, you will know that I believe that Lucia's parents were killed in Liberty City by a crime family. If you want the full context, make sure you go watch that video too. I will make a video where I compile all my theories into one big massive video. But coming back to that day where Lucia is locked up, I believe upon seeing this person from Liberty City, she, without thinking and acting purely out of rage, attacks this person in public, which causes a massive scene and gets her thrown in prison. And in trailer 1, when she is asked, "Why are you here?" referring to why she's in prison, she responds with, "Bad luck, I guess."
Lucia, do you know why you're here?
Bad luck, I guess.
I see her saying bad luck is her referring to just bad timing, as maybe the cops were close by. This scenario explains why Jason wasn't also arrested, and explains why Rockstar says on their website fighting for her family landed her in Leonida Penitentiary. Sheer luck got her out. Lucia has learnt her lesson. Only smart moves from here. I think this sets up her reason to be in jail pretty well, and she is locked up for a few years. Now for Jason on the other hand, having lost Lucia, his partner in crime, he heads back to the Keys and begins to work with Brian and his crew once again. Brian's crew consists of Cal Hampton, Brian Hedder, Laurie Hedder, and this guy, who is rumoured to be named Donnie. This was leaked by an ex-Rockstar dev, which the leaks were later revealed in court to be real. During this time while Lucia is in prison, we can see Jason take on more of a bigger role in Brian's smuggling crew, as Rockstar mentions on their website that Brian is letting others do his dirty work. So I believe Jason and Cal are doing the majority of the heavy lifting, or better said, dirty work that goes on in Brian's boatyard. As we can see in trailer 2, Jason and Cal lifting the product into the plane while Brian stands and watches. I know this is a Jason origin story, but I've actually speculated in the past about Brian's origin, and I think it would be good to add his origin into this video to help shape the people around Jason in some sort of originception. This is what Rockstar officially says about Brian Hedder. Nothing better than a mudslide at sunset. Brian's a classic John runner from the golden age of smuggling the Keys, still moving product through his boatyard with his third wife Laurie. Brian's been around long enough to let others do his dirty work. There is a lot packed into this short paragraph. Rockstar straight up confirms that Brian is a smuggler. Not just any smuggler, but a veteran, a relic from the golden age of smuggling. If Brian's around 60 years old, and GTA 6 takes place somewhere around 2024 to 2026, that'll put his birth somewhere around the mid 1960s. That means Brian would be in his 20s during the event of GTA Vice City, and during the real life cocaine boom of the early 1980s. In real life, during the early 80s, roughly 70% of the white stuff entering the United States was coming through Miami, the white stuff cowboy era, if you will. So if Brian grew up in Leonida during that time, it's very likely that he was involved in that world. Smuggling, cartels, boats, airships, dirty money, all those things being a daily occurrence to Brian in his life. To me, Brian feels like someone who survived that era, one of the only few who made it out, while a lot of others didn't. Brian has definitely seen a lot of shit. We also know that Brian has been married 3 times. His current wife Laurie is the third, and Laurie is not just some trophy wife sitting on the sidelines. We see her multiple times in the promotional material being involved in the crime, and in one short clip, she's fully geared up, looking like she's very much involved in every aspect of the business. Brian's main way to smuggle is by air and sea. Old school, exactly what you expect from the veteran smuggler. He knows the entire game inside and out. Rockstar also quotes Brian with this quote: "I hold so much grass in that plane, I could make the state of Leonida levitate." So I reckon the plane we see here is definitely his baby, which looks like a classic dodo plane, which is honestly perfect for smuggling, being able to land both on land and on the ocean. And to make Brian's origin even more interesting, I've come up with a theory that connects Brian and GTA 6 to GTA 5 Online, and that is of course Cayo Perico, baby. The island that Cayo Perico appears to be based on in real life is called Norman's Cay, aka Cayo Norman, or Cayo Norman, whichever way you say it. Norman's Cay is a small island used by the Medellin cartel. It is used as a transshipment base for smuggling via white stuff to the United States. And it's also used as a private party island. Just like how in GTA 5 Online, we see that Cayo Perico is a party place for multi-billionaires. Cayo Perico's airfield also bears a lot of resemblance to the real-life Norman Cay's airport. The shape of the island appears to be based on Kanoan, a small island belonging to St. Vincent. So, Norman's Cay in real life is only 220 miles or 354 kilometers away from Miami. And if we continue the trend and say Cayo Perico is located in the same spot in real life, then it is extremely close to Vice City. And the man who runs Cayo Perico is of course El Rubio, who seems to be around the same age as Brian. So, there's a high possibility that Brian knows of El Rubio and the magical drug island of Cayo Perico. Now, I'm not certain if Brian could have worked with El Rubio. We do know that on Cayo Perico, there are fields upon fields of the green stuff growing, and Brian is mentioned to haul a lot of grass. So just maybe that could mean that Brian helped haul the product from Cayo Perico to Leonida in some sort of way. Or maybe in the gap while Lucia is in prison and Jason is working with Brian again, we could see that they work with the Cayo Perico cartel. And another theory I have is that during the 80s, El Rubio worked alongside Brian to gain millions, while Brian only got the scraps, and maybe this led to a conflict between them, because El Rubio ended up with a private fortress on his own island, while Brian is still living in the Keys. But hey, that's enough schizo for you guys. So coming back to while Lucia is still in prison and Jason is working alongside Brian and Cal, I believe that maybe Brian could plant some seeds in Jason's head, and those seeds begin to shape the story. I believe Brian could begin to warn Jason that maybe Lucia is just too dangerous for her own good, being extremely hot-headed and filled on revenge. And Brian has a feeling that Lucia's rage could lead him and the rest of the gang into very dangerous territory. Rockstar actually backs the theory of Lucia being bad for Jason with this line here: meeting Lucia could be the best or worst thing to happen to him. Jason knows how he would like it to turn out, but right now, it's hard to tell. And this tells us that the major conflict of the story is because of Lucia, and Brian, being the protective father figure, tries to warn him. And everything I've mentioned so far leads to Brian pulling up to one of his properties in the Keys, where a older Jason is living rent-free, and that is where we pick up Jason's story. Boom. There you have it. I would like my Oscar and Mark Twain award and my Game Award in the mail. There is definitely zero plot holes with anything I've said. There's nothing wrong with my origin story. And anyone in the comments saying I'm wrong are just paid actors by Rockstar. Now, all jokes aside, this does set up Jason for a pretty well written arc of Jason leaving crime behind him and Jason finally realizing that he can actually change. He can become a better man. He's not tied to the cards that he's been dealt with since birth. And in Jason's character conclusion of changing, this sparks Lucia to finally change from her ways. And she realizes that her good life that her and her mom have dreamed of since Liberty City was in fact just having Jason in her life, not some crazy revenge story or having millions of dollars. Jason is that good life. Well, that's how I believe Jason's origin story could go. I hope you all enjoyed the video. It was actually a lot of fun to write and come up with this story idea. Honestly, don't really have much more to say other than just thank you for sticking around to the end. With all that being said, I've been Grid and I really do hope to see you in the next one. Later, gang.